Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. Uh, During the night, the first cup of coffee isn't fully kicking in, and they're out of pure cane sugar now. I've used the last of the level teaspoon packets, and it's really dead. It's almost 9 o'clock, and almost nobody at Starbucks. Nobody, because the season of avarice kicked off last night with really all the department stores staying open until midnight. So people are looking like me this morning, although me, it's just the fact that actually I woke up refreshed at around 5:20 on my normal, morning bladder call, and then I made the mistake of going back to sleep, even though it was actually warmer then than it is now. It's going to be a chilly, cloudy day. Red sky at morning, by the way, morning report. And this is about several things. This is about maybe coffee, cultural differences in coffee and tea, and maybe something about consumerism or whatever. I don't know, because my arm is feeling kind of weak this morning, and I keep watching it. I review my videos and stuff. And I keep seeing this, especially with the front light on. You can clearly see all the way to my, the intake, the small ports of my nostrils that go into my sinuses, and you can see that they're not red or inflamed. In part, that's because I don't live in some airtight, and really never have been able to live very long in an airtight, energy efficient, ozone and fragrance filled home. Now, I tend to ramble about stuff because actually, this is kind of the time of the day when I have to sort through, because I was going to make some comments about coffee, and then I go like, those stories about the origin of coffee and the jumping goats, and somebody said monks, or used the wrong term in that particular thing, speaking about the Arabs or something, who really, took coffee to the world. Coffee's from Africa. While I'm on that, you should really watch, what is the title? You can find it on, this is the problem as you get older, is that when you're young, you're taught so much bullshit. And then you have to spend a lot of your mature years screaming out. You remember the, what is it? Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Simon song, after all the crap and I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think it all. Because, public schools are not about education. A few of them are, but they're about programming you mostly to be a good factory worker. I actually did go to a college preparatory high school. We had it anyway. So, oh God, here it goes again. I have to do it. It's one of the reasons I keep smoking these cigarettes. I don't really inhale deeply like a drunk or a meth head. I just kind of puff on them to satisfy the same hand-mouth oral fixation that Einstein had. I've already explained this shit before. Oh God, I can see I'm going to go. Because as you speak and talk, you begin to increase your adrenal production. I'm not young. When I was young, I was Ben Shapiro sharp. I didn't need notes, or I didn't need a cell phone or whatever to, Google shit, while I'm in a debate. I like the way that Oxford does it some of the Cambridge, but Oxford does it face to face, where you're facing your opponent. And you can see the clues of, I might be slightly different than some people when you're doing See, I'm trying to not. One of the reasons I pause so much is that I'm trying to not talk over your head. Please, for a couple of decades of my life, when on a blink of an eye I could speak at the biomedical researcher level, where nobody around us except those that were in our specific areas of knowledge could understand a fucking word we said. And you people have very little education. Oh, that's one of the first things I wanted to mention, is that last night I had 1,000 viewers, and only one commenter got through. I noticed like one subscriber come through, and I'm going like, no, he looks suspicious. It's another blank page. And shit, I figured he was probably hobo friendly, but I'll leave him there for a minute. But I think from what I could see, you got caught in my hold for comment, hold for review. So I don't think you even ever appeared. And technically, I haven't hidden my channel from you yet. So you're free to unsubscribe. I'm not here for commercial purposes. I'm here for my recollections, to educate, entertain, exercise my memory a bit. And because doing that helps me to erase all the crap that I learned in the past that I know now is bullshit. So, comments on coffee. I don't know really where this black coffee thing comes from, except maybe from England, where they have a tendency to, but then they still put in lactose. They'll drink their tea, they'll keep it super hot, so, the tea cozy and all that sort of thing. And so that they can pour in a big dollop, that the English pretty much can survive on a diet of milked up coffee, sometimes almost half and half, and toast with a little butter on it. It's enough for you to survive on for a long time. There's actually a World War I joke on that, if I can remember it, but I don't really want to address it now. See, even in Texas, we have, that's one of the points I wanted to make about coffee, is this morning, this establishment isn't going to sell because they're out of the big pouring containers, and I've used up the last of those little tiny, because in Texas, if you restrain our sugar consumption, and we're a Texas coffee drinker. Now, there's different cultures in Texas that they were not the original. That's actually where I wanted to go, was talking about history, the history of exports from America, both the island part, which some of it was British, some of it was Spanish, some of it was, and it revolves around the sugar. That's what is prompting this. Maybe I should begin there. When I'm having to type, or write slowly, because I can think extremely fast, can speak very fast, much faster than now. I'm slowing down and trying to talk to anybody who's I try to use a vocabulary, because when somebody deliberately tries to talk over my head, like all those fake ass philosophers who just make up words, like empath, I'm really not a big lover of philosophers. Those seekers of wisdom, who turn out to usually be total bullshit artists who just, anyway. This is in regards to sugar, tea, coffee consumption, and other related items, is that we see a cultural difference here. It's the English, for a long time, they had tremendous quantities of tea coming from the Indian subcontinent, and I guess coffee from the Arabs, and by way of the Dutch. And one of the things that was kind of short on the English market was sugar, especially refined sugar. But then again, they almost every English little tiny farmer or whatever, they kept a beehive, and they used to, when somebody would die, they would go do what this called talking to the bees kind of thing. I love studying this kind of stuff because I do really identify primarily as because fuck the Germans. Almost all the Germans that I've met, the new ones, are the most humorless and guilt-ridden people I've ever seen. I mean, they really are not responsible for what their uh, grandfathers and great-grandfathers did. Please cut them some slack, but they still, because they prohibit such things as no display of the swastika. You paint a swastika on a building in Germany, you're going to be doing a hard time, motherfucker. So back to sugar, coffee, and tea, because this is the morning report. Shabbat Shalom. Now, before, like the American islands and the Americans began moving into areas where sugarcane could be grown and stuff like that, as I recall from accurate history, one of our first major imports to England was the wild-growing sassafras, which for those of you who don't know it, now I've met foodies that don't know where you get the kind of thickening agent for filet gumbo. Filet, the powdery, that's actually dried sassafras leaves. It has a mitten-shaped leaf and stuff. They're easy to spot. They don't grow they're kind of like a little bush, a sapling. They really get big, but the roots that's originally was part of, I think, the root beer farming. It was sassafras, and selling sassafras root to Englishmen as an alternative form of tea, because tea has actually more caffeine pound for pound than does coffee. And I'm sure that, anyway, before, like, North America, the islands, and America began producing enormous quantities of good pure cane sugar consumption, besides what your domestic production of honey and stuff that would be considered a sugar, and was probably less than a quarter of a pound a year because it was expensive, and it was not. Englishmen have this weird propensity for bitters, Angostura bitters. They call beer, sometimes they call it, I'm pretty sure I got this right, a pint of bitters. Point of bitters, please. Sir? That's what they call, like, the hopped up German variety of beer or whatever. And once America began producing the islands, and they own some of those islands still yet, the English do. That's where they shipped the Irish women to be raped by African slaves bought from Africans, primarily on the west coast of Africa, to produce, in what there was estimation, and I tend to agree, a smarter slave that could withstand working out in the sugarcane fields all day long. Cuba and the rest of the Caribbean islands, which are the Americas, they began producing sugar, pure cane sugar or brown sugar, the processed, and molasses, sulfured molasses for worldwide consumption. And all of a sudden, British annual consumption went from a quarter of a pound of refined sugar all the way up to a pound. Wow. That is actually technically a radical alteration of the English diet. And I listen to what my parents say, because they're repeating what their parents and their parents' grandparents said. And so I remember all these things. I remember critical points. Sometimes I just clip off shit that is really irrelevant and try to hang on to that which is am I using the term correctly? Is that is cogent or that applies to. I'm sorry, I'm in bringing my vocabulary down because I don't really think the way I'm speaking. My the words and the word pictures in my head are different. Sorry, I have to adjust my posture. I've already gone 15 minutes, but hey, maybe I'll keep you company while you're having your coffee, your morning tea, and maybe you'll understand this subject a little better. And there she goes. I'm having some little problems with that little. That's actually a female I went by. She's homeless. She dresses like a boy. She walks and she may be from up from the Northeast because she splays her feet out slightly. The way they do, it's most pronounced in Maine, which Maine now claims the first Thanksgiving happened there. And I may, in researching that, may have actually found because that's about the time that when my mom's stealth Anglo-Jewish family, wealthy, arrived there. There was a colony there by 1607. Okay, this is not talking Plymouth Rock, 1620, first Thanksgiving. Please, you people have been fed so much shit. So it's natural, and one thing is I've watched a lot of people die, and my dad had a sweet tooth. He didn't do a lot of sugary items, but he liked mom's pie, and actually, mom really didn't get along with coffee too well. So, by the time I was born, the coffee percolator was already just in the cupboard. It was not. My dad really didn't drink coffee and stuff like that. And that's another point I want to make is that the original Texans, there were none of these black beans around then. As a matter of fact, there was somebody who had come up with, I think they actually separate the husk and the bean, roast them separately because they brown at different rates, and then they recombine them because there's actually caffeine in all parts of the coffee plant, the coffee bush. Leaves, beans, stems. I guess the main trunks and stuff don't have much, but probably some in the bark. But it's full of caffeine. And I remember as a kid was that especially, but sometimes they were not the richest. I don't know. We weren't really, by the time I was born, we weren't really a coffee drinking family. My mother knew that and she's not going to prepare something, waste time preparing something that she really has no interest in. And my dad doesn't really need because he's a get up and go workaholic, like both my parents were. But there was a Maryland Club brand called Butternut. It was less expensive. And that's the part of this, the snooty, the rich people would stop touching. So actually, I find these snooty rich people that are trying to bringing in the kind of the black coffee thing, and then actually bought into that. I remember when French dark roast started showing up here, and I was quickly realizing, like, well, there's no benefit to the tannic acid, but it does give it like an endless shelf life, like almost like honey. Because once you burn that bean, let me ask Texans. I know there's probably several of them already up and had done. They already had their coffee and they're wide awake. I've got many Texans in my subscribers. You wouldn't need a pot of burnt pinto beans, would you? Why the hell would you want to have a drink made out of burnt pinto beans? So back to the butternut coffee. Butternut coffee is smooth and delicious, and it's just barely brown and stuff. And because that's the way beans were and coffee was when I was a kid. There was none of this black roast, super tannic acid, nasty crap that's absolutely destroys appetite. I think that's one of the things that my dad learned was probably from me even being around the military and stuff like that was that sucking that black ass percolate. Because when you take coffee and keep running coffee, because it only takes actually a few seconds to extract the flavor and the caffeine, and you've got to have, actually the percolators had coarse filtration, but if you set that, it would turn nasty. My dad wasn't really a coffee drinker. I come from a tea drinking culture, and we prefer our tea sweet. And I was making the point before that I've watched many people die, and you should look for it in your own health. Because I've recently had a period where I lost my sweet tooth, as they say. Before my dad died, I noticed that when he was trying to keep his illness secret, he did keep it secret so that I would go back to California and I wouldn't have to watch him die. But I came back to Texas and watched him die. I noticed that my dad stopped, you know, waiting on mom's pies or other sweets. He lost his sweet tooth. If you lose the natural craving for sweet things, it means completely lose it, because you almost can't avoid then you might be seriously ill. You are seriously ill. So I've gone on almost 22 minutes now. My best friend is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Czech. His wife is Slavic. I've never pried into the name. I know it's, in her case, it would be Ska, feminine, but Ski. And I don't want to ask, because sometimes some Slavic groups absolutely do not want to be associated or mistaken for another Slavic group, where they have and then you can spot the Jews, because the Jews don't have the Ski or Ska on the end, or other known variants of it. And she's a doctor of biochemistry, and in their house they drink black coffee, small cups, really almost what a cup of coffee technically is the demi-tasse. It's 6 ounces. I've had idiots argue with me that a cup of coffee is 8 ounces. No, look right on the container. They're still telling you the recipe is based on 6 ounces, which is technically really a demi-tasse, a half cup, semi-tassa, demi-tasse. So they drink pretty much 2 or 3 demi-tasses in the morning of black coffee, served precisely at 137.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really my minimum temperature. I'd like it a little bit hotter. So anyway, I'm so glad that the avaricious, greedy people who, all the department stores are open to midnight. There's really almost no activity at Starbucks, at 7-Eleven. There's still people that still ain't got their ass out of bed because they was up to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, that's what I want to finish on. I'll try to do it. You people that are always searching for the deal, understand how to search for the deal. Also know how to do it electronically through certain methodologies. I even do that on Uber rides. Sometimes I'll put in the destination but not book it. Back off for a while, put in the destination, not book it. Put in the destination, not book it. Then when the price is right, book it. And you people are out there, y'all are paying the Black Friday prices when you really haven't been noticing that the price of that item since about last March, April, has been steadily climbing during the summer to where people really stop consuming anything but recreational shit. And it keeps climbing until just before they've actually now moved Black Friday to way before Thanksgiving. Then all of a sudden they present you with the discount, which is actually was the original suggested retail price. Yeah, I'm a Jew. I used to be able to wear the finest clothes because I'd go to Maine every summer, and what would be their fall and winter gear would be really fine quality shit, would be drastically reduced because they're a perishable item. Clothing, especially natural fabrics, are perishables. And now they're trying to come up with a different thing where they leave that shit out there forever. They're trying to keep getting the maximum, still trying to make a profit on shit that you really can't make it. You got to sell it for what you bought it for or less to clear your shelves and get ready for stock that will sell at a good margin. So, before I would leave here, I would buy the winter clothing that was seriously marked down because it's cold as shit up in Maine, even in summertime. And then when I got up there and stuff like that, as it would warm up and stuff towards, going towards July and August, I would actually, as soon as I got there, I'd start buying. Oh gosh, I used to get some beautiful clothing for the warm weather there. You still need like a real good, heavy cotton sweater and stuff for warm weather in Maine and stuff like that. I used to do it that way. And when I travel light, kind of hobo style and stuff, I wouldn't take hardly anything with me. And Jack Reacher style, I'd really sometimes only go up there like by Amtrak or something else, and I've gone to Maine by bus because it's just such a long fucking drive. I mean, dude, it's to where I go to Central Maine. It's like from here, it's over 2,800 miles. It used to be 2,750, and I don't really, after you spend a couple of nights, and I would always actually. This is one of my travel tips. I always used to pick out what I call the Hindu hotels, because while they would be inexpensive, they would be clean, and the fragrances would be strictly limited to the office. And they didn't bother you. You could smoke pot, you could drink and stuff as long as you were no problem. You didn't create a problem. The Hindus wouldn't eject you or call the cops on you. And I'm a well-behaved person, despite what the hell you think. And when I'd get up there, I'd go to Goodwill, where they would have, perfectly brand new clothing and stuff like that. And at the end of the summer, if I was traveling light, I like to travel light at times. I don't like having luggage and having to, always have because hotels are getting better about the fragrances, and especially that carpet dust shit, deodorizing stuff that, oh God, even, expensive hotels were using that shit in the carpeting. And they were just, for a long time, I would tell them at the front desk that, I'm going to pay you now, but I'm going to go examine the room. I'm not going to break the seal on the toilet. And if I smell any kind of strong fragrance in there, I'd ask them, do y'all use that? I'd ask them a couple of questions. And on occasion, I've been right back immediately because I'm not going to risk another bout of chemical pneumonia. And I would give them the key. That was our agreement. Money back, motherfucker. I'm an old man. I've traveled a lot. I can't claim, actually, I probably could. It's 2.7 million miles, and I've really not spent a lot of it on the tourist path. You people who stay on the tourist path, you don't see the real world. I've gone off into dark, dank places like the landfills of Mexico and Central and South America, where you really see what a culture is like, whether they're a real Christian culture or a socialistic culture like Mexico has been since their last revolution. I've gone places that most of you wouldn't fucking dare go. Not alone, and not carrying at most a hidden knife. or 2 or 3 maybe. Is that a machete in your pants, or are you just happy to see me?